good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you at our digital North American FP&A circle. My name is Olga Rudakova, and I will be your facilitator for this event. Our today's topic is optimizing the FP&A ecosystem, streamlining processes for agility and impact. And this topic has attracted 250 registrations, mostly from North America, but from many other countries as well. And that is my pleasure to facilitate this event for you. So let's start by just looking at the agenda for our event. What we can expect today. The first of all, we will open with asking ourselves a question: what is a FP&A ecosystem? Then we'll go into individual parts of that. We will look at processes, see how we can streamline processes and improve agility through breaking silos. More than that, we'll go into empowering people and see how investing in team members can help us achieve high FP&A maturity. We will cover leveraging technology and speak about practical AI use cases for finance teams. That will certainly be followed for conclusions, recommendations, and Q&A session. And now let me introduce our panel for the event. Let me start introductions with our first speaker, Orly Schwartzman. Meanwhile, all the speakers, you can join me here on the camera so that audience can see you. I will start with you, Orly. Orly Schwartzman is Director, Corporate Financial Planning and Analysis at Balt. Orly has over 20 years of FP&A experience in the healthcare sector. She has expertise in driving finance strategies and digital transformation, and that expertise extends across US and international markets. More than that, as a head of corporate FP&A at Balt, Orly focuses on business partnering, analytical capabilities, and decision making. Orly, we are happy to have you with us today.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much, Olga.
Let me move on with our introductions and introduce our second speaker for the event. That will be Fernanda Noronha. Fernanda is a Director of Finance Process Optimization at Grainger. Fernanda is a multicultural finance and accounting executive. She has rich background in strategic financial planning, technical accounting, and process innovation. At Grainger, Fernanda leads a talented team focused on designing and implementing the future of finance, enhancing the use of data and visualization. Fernanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Olga. My pleasure.
And we are moving on to the last speaker for today's event, Dominic Nguyen. Dominic is a FP&A technology advisor at Wolters Kluwer CCH Tagetik. Dominic has over 25 years of experience in corporate performance management. And before joining Wolters Kluwer, he built his extensive knowledge of the FP&A industry at Oracle, Workday Adaptive Planning, IBM, and Accenture, working in roles across sales, pre-sales, and many other consulting variety of customers and industries. Dominic, we are happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Since I have introduced our panel, let me introduce FP&A Trends Group through important numbers we have to share with you. Since April 2016, we had 273 international FP&A board meetings, and our FP&A Trend Survey respondents already come to more than 2,000, actually 2,000 and a half participants. Our current LinkedIn group has over 54,000 members. So please join us if you're not yet a part of our huge family. Today, what is going to happen at our digital FP&A circle? We are going to have a 90-minute event. You will take part in 3 interactive polls, so share your experience with us, share state of the events at your organization. You can definitely join networking, and we encourage you to connect to our panelists through LinkedIn right now or at any moment after the event, presentation for this event is already available at the handouts section. And you will receive the presentation and the copy of this recording a couple of days after this meeting. More than that, we would like to ask you to take part in our survey at the end of the event. That's really a couple of minutes, even less. And that's feedback which is very relevant to us. I would like to thank our sponsor, our technology sponsor for the event, CCH Tagetik. Embrace the future of finance with AI-based corporate performance management software. Thank you for making this event possible. From my side, I would like to open with a bit of a philosophical question. What is FP&A ecosystem? If you think about that, ecosystem is not exactly a finance term, but we absolutely naturally use it in finance. Ecosystem as such is a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as weather and landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. And this work together is very important part of the definition. By the way, this definition comes from National Geographic. But why do we use this word, ecosystem, when we speak about FP&A or when we speak about the whole organization? The thing is, we as humans apply systems thinking to practically every facet of our lives. And system thinking describes a practice of looking for underlying systems in our lives, how and why things work the way they do, how things relate to one another, and how changing the system could change the outcome. That process also involves looking at different parts of systems to understand their role in the system as a whole. And today we will be looking at different parts of FP&A ecosystem, but also at how these parts relate to each other and work together. So what is FP&A ecosystem then? An FP&A ecosystem is an organizational environment where people, processes, data, and technology interact seamlessly, working together to create a dynamic, responsive system that supports planning, forecasting, and decision-making across the business. So today you will see that each presentation will be devoted to individual parts of FP&A ecosystem, but it's very hard to isolate those parts from one another. They're all interconnected. So in our first presentation, which is devoted to processes, you will definitely hear something about people and technology, because without those, processes won't exist. Our first speaker for the event, Orly Schwartzman, will be speaking about streamlining processes, improving agility through breaking silos. Orly, let me pass the stage to you and enjoy.
Thank you. So my name is Orly Schwartzman. I'm a head of corporate FP&A at Balt. Balt is a global neurovascular medical device company with about 910 team members at 15 sites around the world. In the next slide, we're going to have the agenda of the topic of breaking silos, how it's improving the agility. We're going to talk about the importance of breaking silos, identifying silos in FP&A, the negative consequences, and real-world examples. One of my key responsibilities as the head of corporate FP&A at Balt is identifying and dismantling FP&A related silos. At the corporate level, these silos become increasingly apparent and often disturbing day-to-day operations. The importance of breaking silos. So, what silos mean in FP&A ecosystem, and why is it important to breaking them? When I talk about silos, I refer to departments, teams, systems, data sets, processes that for various reasons operate in isolated fashion, and there is no free information exchange. Breaking silos is super crucial because silos kill visibility, agility, and alignment. When we eliminate silos, we improve efficiency, accuracy, agility, and we are also able to reduce cost in a sustainable fashion. In the next slide, we're gonna look at the various types of silos. Of course, I'm pretty sure all of you experiencing this kind of silos every day. Data silos, process silos, technology and organizational silos. The most common ones that appearing in our day-to-day FP&A lives. Has it ever happened to you that you've been working on a specific data sets on which you base your key analysis and you discover that it does not align with the corporate and consolidation data sets? I'm pretty sure everyone experiencing this kind of situations. Or suddenly you realize that the approval and control processes your team is following not aligned with corporate guidelines, or you discover that you have data discrepancies created by the fact that the newer technology the finance team using and the legacy technology that you kind of still upgrading, not following the same data rules and processes. And I'm sure more than once you experience the disconnect through the organizational departments. So disconnects from between finance and different parts of the organization. In the next slide, we're going to talk about real life examples. So data silos. In our organization, since we are international and global company, we do have multiple ERP systems, and of course, it creates silos in the data. How do we deal with this kind of situation where we have multiple systems, multiple ERP systems? We work very closely with IT, and we work on developing the roadmap on how the up-to-date technology that is currently available can be implemented in our organization. We also develop a global processes for master data management. We work on analytical guide, kind of a dictionary that describes our financial structure, our dimensions and hierarchies. We often provide training to our global teams within the local entities to explain the guide and explain how our financial system is structured and work. We also include this kind of analytical guide in our onboarding material when new people are coming on board. The next slide, we're going to talk about processes, technology silos. Where we have multiple softwares that are kind of disconnected. So we do use ERP system, we use our CRM system, we have our EPM system and BI systems. And of course, the main challenge that we're dealing with is how the system supposed to be talking to each other. I know now the best practice is kind of have the warehouse or the data lake where we have a single source of truth, and from there the data is shared with multiple softwares. And this process might take a little bit of time in terms of the implementation and a lot of human and budget resources. So what do we do in the meantime to deal with multiple systems, and how do we achieve alignment? We do work again very closely with our IT, and we create processes, of course, prioritizing on automation, but sometimes automation is not possible. So we are making sure the data is aligned across the systems. We have built good processes around reconciliation, automated what we could, and uh, again, back to master data management process. In the next one, we're going to talk about organizational silos. How do we deal with disconnects with the various parts of the organization? So, of course, I'm sure you've experienced the disconnects with HR on workforce planning, with operations, with sales and other organizational parts. Um, Recently at Balt, we were able to create and build the visualizing tool that shows the organizational structure at real time for existing headcount as well as the budgeting headcount. And this tool kind of was is able to provide us pretty streamlined process for approval of the headcount as well as the budgeting and the workforce planning analysis, and working very closely with HR. For the operations versus finance disconnects, we really trying to stay very close, having multiple meetings a week, and having a close communication with our business partners in operations. For sales, we have fully immersed FP&A team members working with the sales organization, and that allows us to resolve some of the disconnects that are natural and naturally happening. So these are kind of the examples that I wanted to bring up today. In conclusion, by identifying and addressing these silos, FP&A can play a central role in fostering a more connected, efficient, and data-driven organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orly, for sharing your practical experience, for telling us how exactly you deal with silos at Bolt, where you work, and you see the rounds of applause are coming your way because we all enjoyed that presentation. Now, after your by the way, if any of you have questions to Orly, don't hesitate to ask them through the chat box, through the question box right there. Meanwhile, let me ask you a question. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to launch our first. Polling question for today, and we are going to speak about how standardized your FP&A workflows are. So, this first polling question: how standardized are your FP&A workflows? One option is fully standardized and documented, mostly standardized, quite a good state, ad hoc, with some structure present or no standardization yet. You can't imagine how curious I am to learn the answer, to learn the percentages. So question goes like that. How standardized are your FP&A workflows? Fully standardized and documented, mostly standardized, ad hoc with some structure, or no standardization yet. Let me give you 30 more seconds to answer this polling question. By the way, the majority of you have already voted, so okay, let's end this poll and share the results with everyone. So what do we see here? The absolute winner with 42% is ad hoc with some structure. Another almost equal number of votes, 36%, mostly standardized. Third place, 17%, no standardization yet. And absolutely minimum, 6%, fully standardized and documented. Orle, what do you think? Are you surprised by the results?
I'm not surprised. I expected it to be somewhere mostly in number 3, which is an ad hoc with some structure. And it's interesting that 36% is mostly standardized. So interesting analysis.
and actually very positive, right? So it's actually indeed better result than many of us can expect, mostly standardized and even 6% fully standardized. So congratulations to everyone. That's indeed very strong result here. Let me close this poll and let me move on to our next part of the event. And next part will be actually a short discussion between every one of you. So let me ask all of our panelists to join us here on the camera. And we were speaking about processes, about streamlining processes, about how well processes are documented and standardized in our organizations. Now let me ask you a connected question. In your experience, what are the early signs that an FP&A process is becoming too rigid to support agility? Let me start here with you, Fernanda. What do you think?
Yeah, in my view is when we see the FP&A team spending more time in documentation and much less time in talking to the business, being a business partner. So this is the moment where we need to evaluate if we are taking too much in the process and in the standardization.
Right, and that's indeed an early sign. If you see people documenting too much, it's actually telling us, oh, yeah, our processes are becoming too complex. What do you think, Dominic? How can we notice that our processes are becoming too rigid? What do you think?
Yeah, great question. I think when you start to see the FP&A team get away from the actual true value of the solution and start to procrastinate and start to maybe roll back to things that they're more comfortable with, maybe back into the Excel models, or just kind of a big sign that the true value of the FP&A process is probably being too cumbersome for them.
All right, people rolling back to what was used before, finding some shortcuts through Excel that indeed can indicate that our official processes are too complex to follow. Let me come back to you, Orle. What do you think? How can we notice that our processes are becoming too complex and too slow?
Yes. So when approval workflows start to drag and decision making slows down significantly, that's the red flag to me.
Well, definitely. We can actually measure this time from kind of start of the process to final approval. And if it takes too long or the time is actually getting longer and longer, that's definitely a red flag to all of us. Thank you so much for all of your answers. Thank you for commenting on that. And it allows us to move on to the next part of our event, really speaking about people and teams. Our second speaker for today's event will be Fernanda Noronha. Fernanda will be speaking about empowering people, investing in team members to achieve high FP&A maturity. Fernanda, let me pass the stage to you. Enjoy.
So hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to talk about people, and how we develop people. But before I start talking about that, I wanted to give you a little bit more information about my career, because FP&A is not the same depending on the size of the company that work or the type of company we work. So over my career was dedicated to global public companies. I worked for the Roche Swiss Pharmaceutical Laboratory in the beginning of my career. Spent a couple of years at Accor, that is a large European hospitality channel. I spent, I would say, 2/3 of my career at ADM, which is 35 Fortune magazine company in the nutrition business, and now I'm working for Grainger. So everything that I'm gonna talk here is about my experience and mainly focus at Grainger. So Grainger is a leading broadline MRO distributor for North America, Japan, and the UK. Our sales is about $17 billion. We have about 26,000 employees, and with that, 1,000 of them is in the finance team. We place a significant emphasis in customer satisfaction at Grainger, and that said, we heavily invest in our team and in integrating technology into our daily activities. So here's how I see the different roles and skills that will support the FP&A activities. So here I included 8 roles, and normally in the companies that I've been working, it's not that all those roles are inside the FP&A function, but all of them will interact with the FP&A. So for example, I'm responsible for everything that is process optimization and the data analytics for the finance team at Grainger. So I'm responsible for the data scientist role and the process optimizer role. We also have somebody in the global technology that is responsible for systems architect. And at this moment, we are evaluating to bring this role to the finance group. And interacting with the finance group, we have a communication person that help us to drive the message when we have important projects to release or even important activities like the earnings release. And we also always have somebody in the HR team helping us to train in the team, especially in storytelling or any other capacity that we need to have to train the team, be able to better provide service to the company. In terms of the investment in the team, I would like to talk about how Grainger is investing in the finance team to upgrade to our strategy in terms of maturity of our FP&A function or maturity of our finance function. So I would say that we are investing in 3 big things. The first thing is in the hard skills training. So Grainger has been investing in training the full finance team, not only the FP&A, in data analytics. And with that, is investing in helping people to learn how to code. And currently, most of our finance analysts, they know how to use SQL queries to look for data. And it was heavily invested in the team to use visualization tools such as Power BI and the Tableau. So this is something that is not only the data and analytics team is familiar with, but this is part of the culture of the finance team to learn to know those tools. The second thing that was a huge investment here was in the continuous improvement mindset. So over the years, we have been investing in reinforcing the team in how to do a process thinking to solve issues. And one of the techniques that we have been used is the A3 templates, where it's a very structured way to highlight what is the problem that you wanted to solve, what is the root causes, what is the solution, and how we measure the solution. So we apply this in everything that we want to do in terms of continuous improvement. In our third pillar in terms of investment in the finance team is about the soft skills, storytelling. So this was a large investment for the full finance team in techniques in how we can better tell a story. And we have different techniques to use that. For example, the stock techniques, where we highlight what is the situation we want to talk, what triggers, the override question, the key message, and the explanation. So all these training strategy was developed for a large group of training, and also depending on the department, how we could tailor this training in terms of, oh, probably controllership will need a different visualization techniques than our FP&A team. But it was very important that together with other technology or other process that we implemented, we had this investment in the team. A second thing that I wanted to highlight in terms of development, the finance team for the future, was our development plan strategy. So we have two things to highlight here. So Grainger has a finance development program where we connected with some universities, and we hired people that just left the university to work in our company. And we developed a 3 years program where during these 3 years, those recent graduates rotate in 3 different areas. They have specific trainings, they have mentorship, and they have constant evaluations. By the end of this program, this person has a more holistic view of the company and may be invited to become one of our senior analysts. A second thing that I observed that's pretty remarkable in our company is for the ones that are interested, there is a highly mobility of our senior talents. And this is not only in the finance group. We have talents that also come from the business, and then this shared experience is helping the company to develop their finance strategy and how to achieve the maturity. A very good example is our CFO, Deidre Merriweather. So, before being a CFO for Grainger, she worked as a VP of Sales and Strategic Initiatives, and also worked in the pricing team. And she is a person that she sponsors and really thinks that helps the company to advance when you have this broader experience. To finalize, here is what I truly believe. When you empower people and you bring the right tools and the right process, you can achieve the FP&A maturity. I would say with this huge investment that the company is doing, Grainger is now mostly in the level 4 stage of the maturity, in the maturity level, and we are beginning things in the level 5, where we are starting to use more generative AI to self-serve our business partners. And then our FP&A team would work more in level 3 questions, not level 1 and level 2 questions that are more basic. And with that, I finalize my presentation.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, for sharing your practical experience with us, for letting us know how you develop talent at Grainger and how you build balanced team. I'm actually very pleased that you connected it at the end to our FP&A trends maturity model. That's indeed a very powerful self-assessment tool. So you can do a self-assessment for your organization, for your FP&A team. Just access it at our web page of FP&A trends. Meanwhile, if you want to ask questions to Fernanda or to any other panelists, please do so through the question box. We are already receiving very interesting questions to Fernanda, so look forward for the answers at the end of this event. And I will move on to our polling question. So a question to the audience. And this polling question will be devoted, obviously, to our finance teams. How would you characterize your finance team structure and resource? So let me launch this one and collect your answers. How would you characterize your finance team structure and resource? And we have four options here. We have optimum team structure and resource. Obviously, would be ideal answer. We consider restructuring our team, or we consider hiring new team members. Or the last option, we actually would like to do all of that, but we lack budget and support for the optimum team structure. So let me read out this question again, and that's indeed a very interesting bit of diagnostics here. So how would you characterize your finance team structure and resource at this moment? We have optimum team structure and resource, one option. Another, we consider restructuring our team. We consider hiring new team members, or we would like to do that, but we lack budget and support for the optimum team structure. I can't wait for the answers to be revealed, but let me give you another 30 seconds to complete this poll. Wow, amazing. So many of you have voted already. So let's close this one and share the results with everyone. And we indeed have a winner here. Unfortunately, that the answer will lack budget and support for the optimum team structure. And all the remaining answers got almost equal number of votes. 20% goes to we consider hiring new team members, 17% we consider restructuring our team, and another 17% we have optimum team structure and resource. Fernanda, what do you think? Are you surprised by the results?
No, I'm not surprised, especially in a year that we are seeing so many changes in the economy. And we know as finance professionals, it's always hard to request resources for our teams. That is a support team instead of investing the sales and the distribution. So yeah, it's something that we all of us needs to deal with the budget restrictions and also with the right argument in order to do the investment in the finance.
Indeed, indeed. That's a point when we lack resources, but at the same time, we indeed need new skills and new roles in our FP&A teams. Thank you so much for your comment. Let me close this poll and move on to our short discussion afterwards. So now we were speaking about people, teams, how complete our teams are in terms of structure and resource. Now let's move on and speak about how exactly, how practically can we improve that. And that question relates to finance leaders. Meanwhile, I would like to ask all the panelists to join us here on the camera to take part in this discussion. So the question goes like that. How can finance leaders, how can you as finance leaders maintain momentum after initial improvements in the FP&A ecosystem is done? So how to make sure that this transformation is sustained and scaled? You know what? Let me start with you, Dominic. What do you think? How can finance leaders do that?
Yeah, great question. I'd say two parts. Number one, collaboration. I think it's the continuous collaboration with the stakeholders, making sure that they're getting value out of the system, asking questions, documenting any kind of change management, things that might need to be improved in the process. I think secondly, also the training component, right? Just keeping them educated, up to date as technology improves and things change with any new solution. It's important to continuous training. So those two things.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for underlining that again. In both presentations, we've heard today about improving skills, gaining new skills, and soft and hard ones. So that's another way to emphasize that as well. Let me move on to you, Orle. What do you think? How can finance leaders maintain momentum after initial improvements in the FP&A ecosystem? How to make sure that this transformation is sustained and scaled. So, Orly, what do you think?
Um, Seeking ongoing feedback to make sure the changes are being managed properly, and continue to deliver value over time. That's very important.
Indeed, indeed. Getting feedback at the right moment of time, adjusting to that feedback certainly is crucial to any change and to any change management here. Let's move back to you, Fernanda. What do you think? How we can maintain this momentum? How we make sure that our changes actually last?
Yeah, I think first thing that we always forget as a finance people is to celebrate and reward when we achieve a momentum of an initial improvement. So this is my first tip. The second is investing in continuous improvement. Have a culture of continuous improvement with training and always incentivize people that we can do it better.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you all for your answers. That's great answers and cover all the aspects of maintaining and sustaining achieved change, achieved improvement. It brings us to the last bit of our FP&A ecosystem, and we will talk about technology now. So we've covered processes, we've covered people. Now let's talk about technology that enables all of that. Our third speaker, Dominic Nguyen, will cover leveraging technology and will speak about practical AI use cases for finance teams. Dominic, let me pass slides to you and uh, wish you enjoyable presentation. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Olga. Yeah, so welcome everybody. I just want to build on the meeting here from a process people. We're going to be focused on technology next. Before I do that, just a brief background about myself. I'm an FP&A technology advisor here at Wolters Kluwer. A little bit about my career. I actually started in FP&A as a financial analyst, building reporting packages, a lot of planning and budgeting, closing the books. And I think we all can agree back in the day, the common technology was Excel, right? So as the industry has kind of shifted quite a bit over time, I remember back in the day with the World Wide Web, getting AOL mailings with the internet, moving to a lot of different solutions. So I'm going to walk you through kind of where the trend is in terms of the industry. So our agenda today is really about a few things. Number one, industry trends and challenges, kind of seeing what's out there, what's happening, and how it's impacting the FP&A world. A few customer stories, kind of give you some insights on true live customers, their challenges, and some of the key benefits that they derive from technology. And then a quick overview of the platform, and then really open it up to any Q&A for the group here. With that, let's actually start with trends in finance, right? So the very most important one, as you noticed there, the very top one, the rapid market changes. Recently we went through a COVID situation where a lot of FP&As were reforecasting, replanning, maybe a little bit downside, but actually the opposite happened, right? So a lot of hiring happening during that post-COVID era. So a lot of things that you need to accommodate from an economic perspective, in addition to some of the expanded regulatory requirements, right? So whether you're a US based or international, keeping up to date to some of those regulatory requirements could be something that's very important to keep an eye on. Just alluding to higher data volumes, which one of my colleagues mentioned, right? Silos data. It's again common problem in FP&A through either internal new systems or acquisitions. You have general ledgers or multiple general ledgers. You might have sales systems, payroll systems, data warehouses. It's really just accumulating data is a common challenge today in the trend in finance. So the goal really is to kind of take that data volume and turning it into insights and information. So we're here to talk about that. And mostly the digitalization of adoption of AI ML, right? So the key buzzword in the industry, it's relatively new. It feels like we're making a monumental shift here in finance, right? Because it's still a new topic. People are still learning about that. And so it's important to kind of move away from kind of those archaic manual processes and get into more of a digital workforce, right? People are getting more updated on technologies or open, or executives are more open to transformation projects or bringing in solutions that streamline efficiencies. And lastly, it's about finance becoming the business advisor. So what does that mean, right? Um, Traditionally, CFOs, finance, or support departments, but now it's elevated to more strategic areas, right? So being able to make those long-term planning, continuous forecasts, right? What if modeling and all those things that are very important. So we're here just kind of talk about how technology plays on some of these trends, but these are very high-level trends that are happening today in finance. Okay, next slide. We're going to focus on some of those key challenges that we talked about. Keeping pace with the competitors, or keeping pace with just internal demands and challenges, right? Ever speed of complexity of data again, and just being able to do more analysis, right? Because a lot of organizations, from my consulting experience, working with a lot of CFOs across many different industries, the need for increased data analysis is always a key. What we normally see is, people spending too much time not analyzing the data, right? It's more manipulating the data. So you want to kind of switch that pendulum, spend 80% of your time analyzing that data instead of, spending most of it, trying to figure out what works and how to put it all together. That's kind of where technology plays in, right? We want to help you get to that part where you can do more analysis. And really, it's about efficiency, quality, accuracy. All of those are very important, but pushing it to more enterprise-wide planning, so being more distributed. We talked a little bit about the people process, right? The people being able to be more engaged in the process, the collaboration, the ability to kind of work closely together. That's truly when you get the most value, right? Because people know their business really well at the line levels, right? The executive levels, and kind of work together overall. Pushing this across not only just FP&A, but we're seeing a trend in more operations, marketing, sales, working collaborative together. So that's really the goal, is to kind of work closely together. And as we focus a little bit on the common AI challenges, I think, as an industry, number one, the tech and the data, it's a relatively new topic. There's a lot of push to get more skills internally, right? There's just a large gap today in the lack of tech skills in that area, which is common because we're still in the early infancy stage of that. But secondly, also the trust and transparency, right? What does that mean? Because you're getting into an environment where a lot of key processes are being automated. Are we able to trust some of those outcomes? Is it something that we can rely on? What are the risks associated with that? So these are kind of FP&A considerations, along with reiteration of the people resources aspect. There's just not enough people, not enough time in the day to get what we need to be done in our jobs, right, more effectively. So there's a fundamental lift, and at the end of the day, the big one around workforce impact is the new AI technology is going to replace my role. Is it going to be able to do things better and rely on that? So all these are kind of common challenges that we face today in FP&A through AI challenges. Building on kind of the daily pressures, chasing data. I remember back when I was in FP&A, I would always get asked at 5, 6 o'clock at night for a specific report or specific need from the CFO. Well, you would always have to work within a manual, typically Excel, or very difficult, try to get some of those answers. But with today, being able to get some of this information quicker, right? What are the top 5 products or margins for my organizations, right? So how am I, year-over-year comparison? Well, these things are just a tip of the finger away, or when you have good technology. So, but overall, the continuous chase for data is a common challenge in FP&A today. And so how do we overcome some of that chaos with all the different formats that we inherited or built on internally? A lot of data mapping and issues around, hey, my data is not tying out, the inconsistent data flows, all these different sources that we're dealing with. It becomes extremely challenging, right? So that ingestion of all that data is going to be streamlined or helped with the automation of AI. So we'll talk about some stories a little bit later, how we can help companies automap that, right? So So focus on some of those predefined rules to help, through machine learning and help derive some of that data quicker so that you can spend more time on analyzing that information. So overall, kind of just this ingestion of data is a continuous challenge from the FP&A circle. Let me give you a couple of quick examples around how these challenges were resolved. One of them, this first one here, is a top automotive company in Japan. The primary challenging was, again, accelerating those manual processes, right? Dealing with multiple issues around mapping data, uh, why it takes a long time, right? It's inefficient. So what we're able to do here is put more of a technology aspect to help them through artificial intelligence and do auto mapping. So that way, you can still, as a human effort, review those, results, right? You can still make manual updates or adjustments, but at least we're getting to a point where we can streamline the process that is more efficient. And leveraging predictive intelligence is also a big one here in terms of being able to forecast out a lot of traditional ways to do, bottoms up manual ways to do kind of the forecasting, but now we're able to use predictive models to kind of generate, hey, this scenario and that scenario, how do they compare to each other, be a little bit more proactive and efficient in that process. And ultimately the outcome is we were able to kind of boost productivity, right? Be able to do things quicker, right? So all that continuous improvement does one thing. It helps us save time, right? Kind of gives us back some of the time in our day. It's not about just, leveraging that time to not do anything. It's about using that to do more valuable tasks within an organization. Another example here is a large manufacturing in Italy. They again, the key requirement was the time required to do rolling forecasts, right? A lot of organizations today aren't doing enough forecasting, in my opinion. We do a lot of budgeting. We get to a point where we might do some forecasting. The reason why is that because it's just very difficult to do when you change a scenario or you have to modify. As we know, there's no perfect plan, right? A plan is great when you start, but it's that continuous changes in the economic, internal, macroeconomic environment drivers that change our plan. So we got to be able to be nimble and agile. So we were able to help this organization really supercharge their forecast with the predictive planning, right? Leveraging some of the machine learning, through doing more rolling forecasts quickly. And really at the end of the day, they were able to have 90% improvement on accuracy of overall results. So again, increased productivity, right? Helps people get back time in their day to do more efficient tasks. But two great examples of how we can leverage technology to help organizations. Kind of the last slide here is more about, what does it take to really improve those processes based on those polls. We saw not a lot of people are there yet, but being able to have an intelligent platform, right? That first step of the data layer, right? Just being able to bring it into a common environment, right? So whether it's leveraging auto mapping or helping you with some of the predictive intelligence, but bringing it all into a data layer, that's very important, right? One version of the truth is a key buzzword in industry, making sure it's centralized. So that is very key to the intelligent platform. Next, it's really about building on that data layer, right? It's about being able to focus on those key functional areas like, obviously financial close and consolidations is a big one, right? All the things that you need to do to close the books quicker. I've worked with customers that took 2 weeks. We're able to take it down to a few days. The goal in the industry is try to get it down to roughly 5 days or less. Has kind of been the trend, right? Account reconciliation, matching, closing the books, all of that is really common in closing consolidations. And then we move into more extended planning, right? So what does that mean, right? Strategic planning, right? Long range planning to be able to do things from a different scenario perspective and roll that out over many different forecasts, from budgets, forecasts, as well as focusing obviously on revenue, expenses, headcount, sales. Extended planning really means be able to do things above and beyond your traditional finance, right? Because a lot of A lot of organizations, they want to have more operational planning, right? Whether it's in manufacturing, to do more inventory planning, to be able to do, supply chain, et cetera. So really a great intelligent platform allows you to do that extended planning, because that's the key. And some other ones, tax, regulatory, won't mention that too much, but just to kind of close the loop, those are also very important processes in the FP&A cycle. And really from that, you get the intelligent insights, right? It's all about getting your reports quicker. It's really about analyzing variance reports and seeing anomaly, drilling on that anomaly, and understanding why, having nice, pretty dashboards and analytics to see metrics. Uh, and something that's growing is the generative AI, right? Asking a question, giving you insights quickly, right? So all of this really becomes a major factor in having a robust, intelligent platform. Thanks for your time. I'll pass it back to you, Olga, in terms of next steps.
Thank you so much, Dominic, for sharing your practical experience, for sharing use cases of how we can use AI to streamline our processes to make it faster, to achieve more quality output. And that brings us nicely to another polling question related to the topic. So let's have a look at it. First of all, let's read it out loud. How advanced is your FP&A tech stack? And we will definitely give you some options here. Let me launch this last poll for today and see where you stand in your organization. So how advanced is your FP&A tech stack? Is it cutting edge and cloud-based? Or is it modern but still with some gaps? Is it mostly legacy systems, or you're just starting to modernize it? So let's see where we are in terms of advancement of FP&A tech stack. So are we using cutting edge and cloud-based technology? Do we have modern applications but with gaps? Do we use mostly legacy systems, or we are starting to modernize it? So actually moving on from some legacy systems to something more modern and up to date. Oh, so many of you have voted so fast, but let me give you last 30 seconds to get there. Okay, I'm finishing this poll, I'm closing it and sharing results with everyone. So actually we have two answers with almost equal number of votes. Mostly legacy systems got 35%, and modern but with some gaps got 32%. The answer that is falling right next after those two is just starting to modernize with 26%, quite high number. But let's see what Dominic thinks. And the last one, cutting edge and cloud-based, got 6%. So Dominic, what do you think? Are you surprised by the result?
Not surprised. Yeah, the common challenge today is still in the legacy systems, right? It's hard to move away from that. I think the key here is, leveraging technology, and we can still use those legacy systems to gain value in the data. So yeah, not surprising.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you for that comment. Let me close this poll and move on a bit further, getting to our next discussion. So we were discussing technology, modern application, AI implementation. And now let's speak about how we should start modernizing our tech stack. We see that 26% are already doing it. So let me read out this question to you. Where should organizations start when modernizing their FP&A tech stack? What's the low-hanging fruit? And let me start with you, Orle. What do you think? Where should we start?
I think we should start with targeting manual, time-consuming tasks that are easy to automate but deliver big value. That's
Indeed.
the answer.
Indeed, and that's very, very helpful. That's where we should start. Fernanda, what do you think? Where we should start modernization? Where is the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, for me, is democratizing the access to data, have a centralized base. I think it should be the start, have the correct data and centralized and easy to access is where the story starts for me.
Indeed. And you know what? We haven't covered data as such at today's event, but every one of you have mentioned it somehow, and you see many questions from the audience we are receiving relate to data as well. So definitely we will try to answer them. We will cover that bit, this part of FP&A ecosystem as well. Let me pass it back to you, Dominic. What do you think? Where should we start when modernizing our FP&A tech stack?
Yeah, building on my colleagues here, I think twofold. Number one, definitely the centralized data, just because you've heard the term, right? Garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have great data, it doesn't mean anything. So I think the second was automated reporting. I think a lot of FP&A really wants to be able to get the reports quicker, right? So the more accurate we can get that, the more quicker we can get that, those two give you value right away. And then you can move on to some of the other key areas like modeling and planning and so forth. But those two key areas are very important.
Right, right. Thank you for all of your answers, for your pieces of advice. We are approaching the closing part of our event, but don't leave just yet because we have very exciting Q&A session ahead of us. We are receiving so many questions today. I'm really happy, so we'll try to answer most of them. But even if you don't have time to all of them, don't worry, we will ask our panelists to answer some of your questions in writing later on. But before we get to Q&A, I would like to stop for a while and reflect on what we have heard so far. We will be speaking about key takeaways for us, for our audience from the event. Let me start with you, Orly, and ask you to think about the one idea you would like us to take away from this event. You would like us to remember. What would that be?
Going back to Silas, I just wanted to emphasize that addressing FP&A Silas can lead to more agile, responsive, and effective financial planning process.
Oh, indeed. Thank you for reminding us. Thank you for keeping in our mind stylists and how to find them. Let me move on to you, Fernanda. If you have to choose one idea from the whole event, what would that be? What we should remember?
Yeah, in my view, to advance FP&A, we need to always think about the different pillars that we presented today. So everything is important, and sometimes we just focus in one of them. So process is very important. Have your process standardized. Investing in people because they are the ones that are going to do the transformation. We cannot forget it. And invest in technology. What I see in most of the cases, sometimes we put a lot of effort in the technology and forget the process, forget the people, and then we don't have the results that we want.
Right, right. Thank you for making this observation. And let me move on to you, Dominic. If you had to choose one idea from the whole event, what we should remember?
Yeah, great question. I'll probably stay with the quote. I think it's by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, right? Benjamin Franklin. It's really about, don't be afraid to take that leap of faith in technology. I think, back in the day when it was scary at some point, but now it's modern. It's be able to do things quicker, right? It's going to help your lives and it's going to save you time, improve efficiency. So as an FP&A professional, I went through the cycles of manual Excel modeling, and it's very challenging to now modern cloud solutions. So don't be afraid to take that next step.
Right. Thank you for all these answers. It's very encouraging and inspiring, and actually, that connects all the bits of today's topic about technology, data, people, skills we need, and that brings us nicely to our Q&A session today. We have received so many questions, and good that we have enough time allocated to Q&A. So we'll try to answer most of those questions right now. And I will start with you, Fernando, with a question that was addressed directly to you. Let me read it out loud. Fernanda, how was leadership persuaded to make the investment in training? So can you please share with us your experience?
Yeah, fortunately, in our case, leadership was the one that started the investment. and thought about the strategy. So, we also have a very great culture of collaboration where the employees they participate on choosing what we need to learn, and so I think it was a mix of employees being they have the opportunity to be open to talk about what could be good training for them, and we work in developed training internally. It's not just giving external training, and it's the leadership really invests in training for the team, and in have a structured training for everybody.
Right, right. Thank you for this comment. And I will move on to you, Dominic, with a question that combines data and AI. So, what you're expert in. So, let me ask you. Most organizations have not solved data management as such, and now we are entering the age of enterprise AI. How would you handle this shift when data management is not there yet?
Very good question. I think, like we talked about in the session today, right? Everybody's concerned about data. I think it's very important to make sure that you have a platform that can really solve that issue. I think a lot of the challenges today is just sometimes we focus on one key area. It's not strategic, right? You can solve one part of your data issue, but you really don't look at the whole big picture. So I would start very high level and really understand all the data systems that you have. Number one, maybe look out forward in terms of are there any other additional systems, and really understand how we can integrate all that into a common place. A lot of history around building data warehouses and takes a lot of time and effort. As we understand CPM in today and EPM in the world today, we can take all that data into a common place a lot quicker than your traditional uh, history in terms of how we do that, understanding all the mappings and really working together to define that. I think my recommendation is always spend a lot of time up front designing that together. And a lot of mistakes that organizations make today is just kind of rushing through that process, right? Then you get data that is not, we talked about this, right? Siloed data, things aren't kind of tying together. So spend a lot of time up front understanding, planning it, and really getting an environment that is able to bring it into one common place as a platform.
Perfect. Thank you for breaking it down to us. And I'll have another question addressed to Orle. The question goes like that. You've mentioned using visualization tools in your presentation. So can you please describe in more detail the impact of using visualization tools across FP&A and the firm overall?
So the specific tool I was talking about was organizational chart, which is used, these tools are used broadly in all of the organizations. The main uniqueness to our specific process that we developed was not only seeing the existing headcount pretty much live, right? So we have changes to headcount every single day. So this is not unique, but what was unique about the process we developed was also looking and seeing open positions, open approved budgeted positions at any moment of time. And it's really streamlined the control processes around the headcount approval. Very easy to go into your visual tools, seeing your organization, seeing your current employees and improved positions, and very quickly to get approval because the position approved, it was in the budget, it's very visual, you can see it. And once the position is approved, it's moving towards, the requisition, then approval process for the offer, and you could see it live that the person is hired, and suddenly you see it in your headcount in your organizational chart. So, and that process been implemented globally across all the entities. Very easy, streamline the processes that would take us hours, finding out what was the budget, what is the current headcount, what happened. Really, really huge efficiency achievement for us.
Amazing example and very detailed and very visual in the way how you describe it. Indeed, visualization helps us to see patterns, to see connections, to see outliers that are not possible to see without it. Well, in the whole number, great number of questions, it's hard to choose. So please, if your question is not answered, don't worry. We'll try to address it afterwards in writing. Meanwhile, let me pick up a second question for Fernanda, and that is about non-finance people in finance. So have you seen cases where non-finance educated professionals break into FP&A? What do you recommend a pathway to break into FP&A without conventional finance education? What do you think? And is there a place for non-finance people in FP&A?
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more, especially tech people. So I'm a finance person with a team that is a mix. I have lots of data engineers, data scientists, um, mathematicians working with me, and we are together supporting the FP&A transformation. So I think it's a mix. Be open to listen. I think they can, those people, they can help a lot with their understanding in how data moves. FP&A is a lot about data, and if you have a good data background or data knowledge, you can break through. And also, you need to start to be more involved in understanding finance. So, listen to earnings calls, participating on finance discussions. But I'm seeing more and more people in other areas breaking through and entering in finance, especially in the FP&A.
Great answer. Thank you for that. And it's certainly very motivational for everyone outside finance listening to us today. Another question for Dominic, and that's again about AI. Your topic has definitely resonated with many listeners. We are getting a whole bunch of questions related to AI, and that combines FP&A skills and AI. So how do you see the FP&A professional dealing with AI? And about the fact they need to get the base concepts behind it, as statistics and maths notions, data, knowledge, and so on. So can you comment? How can we as finance people deal with AI?
Yeah, I think number one is that it's here, right? It's here and it's available. It's everywhere in terms of access to that information. I think the strategic FP&A professionals have to bring AI into their wheelhouse, right? It's no longer, in my opinion, optional. I think it's now mandatory that we all have a certain level of skill set. Obviously, there's different levels, but I think a high level understanding of how it can help you. So, there's so much resources available, whether it's internal, external, that you can tap into. Just even providing, going on a simple Google search, right? Pretty much can get any answer you want today. If you want to ask a question, there's generative AI. So in my opinion, I think it's one of those things that we have to be committed to getting up to speed on AI. I think the lack of risk around not doing it is becoming more of a competitive disadvantage. So the recommendation is plenty of resources available. You don't need to be a super AI technical guru at this stage, but to be able to understand how it impacts the organization, how it can improve your organization, and also how to improve your roles in the organization. So again, many resources available.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for your answer. That's indeed very helpful to all of us. And the last question to Orle before we move on to a general question, and that is, what is your advice on prioritizing which FP&A process to automate first? How to choose? Again, we are speaking about low-hanging fruit. Maybe that's not where we need to use low-hanging fruit. So please advise how to prioritize.
I think it's based on the prioritization of your goals. We working on a roadmap, so we have a detailed roadmap with our IT team. which is prioritizing our needs. And I'm pretty sure each organization most likely have their own prioritization list. And we have the roadmap has the quick wins plus the long term phased approach for automation and data management. We focus on the quick wins, and we have a clear timelines regarding the longer range roadmap. What do we want to achieve, next, and at what timelines? And it's of course based on the needs of our organization. So it's important to have prioritized list of quick wins plus the long range phased approach.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. It's not only about first priority at the moment, it's about a bit more strategic thinking and really kind of
Mhm.
lining up those improvements so they add up together to a bigger synergy and bigger long-term impact. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for clarification here. And there is a bit of questions that's kind of coming from all your areas, people and teams, processes, data, technology, and that's about our skill set as finance. We've talked a lot about a need to maybe restructure team, maybe to hire new experts outside finance into our teams. But if you think about what is the most important skill for FP&A team today and how to upskill your FP&A team. And let me start with you, Dominic. What do you think? What is the most important skill and how to gain it?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. So I think from a key skill set, I think number one is probably just, I mean, working with people. I think is the key here, right? It's the collaboration with the others. I think, with technology, you can always learn that. I think with FP&A, it's growing. You're going to be able to uh, work with, like we talked about, like data scientists. You're going to be able to work with, you know, marketing sales folks. You're going to be working with. So it's really now the ability to kind of work with people across the organizations because it's becoming more of an enterprise situation today because in the past it used to be very siloed. FP&A was you close the books, you do it again every month. I think today with the technology, the AI, all this is going to be more broadened across. So I think the ability to work with people, because I believe the technology piece is I think probably the easier piece where you can still learn that, you can still get up to speed. But now FP&A people need to be able to expand across the organizations and work with many different departments.
Right. And if you think about how can we get there? How can we gain this skill? So what would be your piece of advice?
Great question. I think the various projects are happening in an organization. I think either being asked to be tasked with that team or asked to be involved in some way, getting more exposure across just outside of the traditional FP&A processes because we're so used to be in our little area now that you can get tasks on some of these projects that involve FP&A, right? So I want to be a team member on this project. It would be very helpful kind of see some of those goals and challenges that they're facing across many different areas. So I think that's the key is to really raise your hand, volunteer, get access to some of those key projects and see how you can help.
Wow, thank you for this piece of advice. Definitely helpful. Let me move on to you, Fernanda. What do you think is a crucial skill for FP&A teams today, and how can we gain this skill?
Yeah, I think the ability to learn how to listen and problem solving, it's pretty a big thing. I think technology is advancing, but if you if you can follow technology, and I think now it's kind of easier with the generative AI, it's more and more important you develop your soft skills on it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And develop soft skills, it's pretty, I would say it's harder than develop your technical skills because it involves a lot of self-awareness, where I'm not doing well in terms of in my communicate clearly. So it's a lot about understanding your performance, understanding if you are applying a problem solving mentality, really focus in your customer and what is important for the customer and for the company.
Right. Thank you so much. That's indeed a deep answer to the question. Orle, what do you think? What is the most important skill for FP&A these days, and how can we gain it?
I totally agree with Dominic and Fernanda. I also think the business partnership is super crucial for FP&A professionals. Staying curious, business acumen, immersing into the business departments that we're working on with, and understanding the business. Of course, to achieve it, you need to ask questions, staying curious, work with your business partners, understanding what drives your business partners, and bridging between the finance and business. Um,
Nicely, very nicely put. Thank you all for your answers. There are still some questions on my list that remained unanswered, but we will come back to them in writing. Now it's time for us to approach with some closing slides. What I would like to share with you as a first of all, some upcoming events. And we would like to invite all of you to our upcoming FP&A Trends webinar on May 28th, and it will be devoted to FP&A business partnering and AI in new era. You see, we are speaking today a lot about working together with the rest of the business, bridging, understanding, listening, curiosity, and business partnering encompasses all of that. So definitely join this one. I would like to thank our sponsor, CCH Tagetik by Wolters Kluwer, for making this event possible. So we are happy that you can be with us for this event. More than that, we would like you to join our FP&A Trends global community, and there are multiple ways how you can join us. Obviously, you can go and subscribe to our FP&A Trends Digest. You can go to LinkedIn and join our FP&A Club or follow our founder Larissa Melnichuk. You can go to our YouTube channel and you can follow us on X. All the links are here. Please don't leave without filling in our short survey. That's very brief, but it helps us improve and make each of the webinar better and better. Let me thank our panelists for sharing your wisdom with us, for sharing practical examples, practical cases from your experience, and sharing valuable pieces of advice to all of us. So thank you all for being here, and see you again at one of the upcoming events. Have a great day.
Thank you.